In the montane lands of the Dwarves, a grim tale is oft told. A story of gods and mortals, of heroes and beasts, of glory and ruin. A story of wealth and death immeasurable. These histories of avarice and toil chronicle the legend of Irolkageth, Northhold. Good evening. Tonight we witness the founding of a new dwarven outpost on the northern frontier. 7 brave dwarves are preparing to embark on a journey to the uninhabited foothills north of the capital. King Zuthon has decreed that these new lands be secured for the Empire, and that every last speck of wealth be pulled from these maiden mountains. The pilgrims making this journey call themselves the Uncommon Ales, and set out under a banner bearing a goblet and crescent moon. They seek to delve out a new home for themselves, and find riches deep below the earth. The trip is short, but treacherous. The dwarves must cross 2 barren badlands, and pass near the dark goblin pits of Menestide. But dwarves are a sturdy people. It will take more than sand in their shoes to turn away this band. You have arrived. After a journey from the mountain homes into the forbidding wilderness beyond, your harsh trek has finally ended. Your party of 7 is to make an outpost for the glory of all of Uthir-Kadal. There are almost no supplies left, but with stout labor comes sustenance. Whether by bolt, plow, or hook, provide for your dwarves. You're expecting a supply caravan just before winter entombs you, but it is spring now. Enough time to delve secure lodgings, ere the giant dingoes get hungry. A new chapter of dwarven history begins here, at this place, Irolkageth, Northhold. Strike the earth. And here we are. Now looking up a couple of Z levels, we can see to the west there's several mountain peaks. These mountains are our best bet for finding lots of minerals and other valuables, whereas looking down we can see a densely forested area to the east. This will provide us with plenty of wood for beds and charcoal, as well as some fruits for brewing. Now before we proceed, we should take a look at our dwarves. Here we have Asmel Jerbarush. She's our expedition leader. She's also an adequate gem setter, and has skills in both appraising and judge of intent. This makes her an ideal candidate to be our broker. Taking a look at her here, she's 76 years old, she has a fondness for windows and rings, and she detests leeches. She has very good intuition and an ability to read emotions fairly well, and doesn't particularly care about craftsmanship. Yet she dreams of creating a great work of art. Don't ask. She finds humor in most situations, she's a perfectionist. She sometimes acts with little determination and confidence, but she's assertive. So Asmel here seems pretty amiable, she's got a good sense of humor, though she can also be a bit shy and unsure of herself sometimes. Because of her preference for valuable trinkets like gems and rings, and her role as our broker, we're going to go ahead and give her a nickname, Petal. The next dwarf of interest is Mesthos Kubuk-Avuz, our weaponsmith. Mesthos is 70 years old and thin. He has an iron will and a sharp intellect, yet he has a difficulty with words and is sometimes cruel. Some consider him rude, and he lowers his eyes when he gets nervous, which happens often. Now Mesthos dreams of creating a great work of art, and has a preference for steel and swords. I like to think that he aspires to create a legendary steel artifact sword as a life goal. It's said that King Zuthon himself is a swordsman. Perhaps Mesthos hopes to present his highness with a kingly gift. In any case, our weaponsmith doesn't seem like the most personable guy. He's cruel, rude, and nervous, but he has big plans. We'll certainly keep an eye on him. Let's give him the nickname Steel. This dwarf is named Solon Urmim-Avuz. She's our brewer. She also has some skill in clothes making and some administrative skills. That makes her a good pick for our record keeper and manager. Solon is 81 years old. She has a good feel for social relationships and a way with words. She is greatly pleased by her own looks and accomplishments. She's extremely confident of herself in situations requiring her skills. She has a tendency to form deep emotional bonds with others. She's quite polite. She enjoys the company of others. She likes to take it easy. She has a calm demeanor. And she likes a little excitement now and then. Yet she doesn't much care about loyalty or honesty. Solon seems very laid back and confident with herself. She'd probably make for a good tavern keeper. We'll have to keep it in mind. For now, we'll nickname her Bill for her signature bilberry wine. Now, Fikod Natigishud is our only dwarf with military skills. She's an adequate axe dwarf, a skilled tactician, and has some skill with shields, wrestling, and dodging. These skills earn her the honor of being our militia commander. Now, Fikod is a hefty dwarf, but she's also rather agile. She believes that those who sacrifice for others should be deeply respected. She sees war as a useful means to an end and respects the development of skills. She dreams of raising a family. Fikod is vengeful and never forgets or forgives past grievances. But she's very friendly and always tries to say nice things. She generally acts impartially and is rarely moved to mercy. She's stubborn and slow to trust others, and she has a tendency to go it alone without considering the advice of others. I'd say Fikod's respect for sacrifice, war, vengeance, and impartiality will make her an excellent defender of our fortress. Because of her size, her martial strength, and her eclectic preference for musk ox men, the dwarves have taken to calling her Ox. Zon Rovadzemesh is both our mason and our doctor. She's a competent mason, a skilled diagnostician, a novice surgeon, novice bone doctor, and a novice suturer. While cutting stones and setting bones might seem like disparate skills, there's something to be said for versatility when establishing a new colony. Zon is 68 years old. She's very muscular, values family and introspection, does not trust others. She's disturbingly inattentive to detail in her own work. She's humble, tends to avoid crowds, and forms only tenuous emotional bonds with others. She also likes to brawl. Now, it's hard to say that this inspires confidence in me about our new doctor. Details can be rather important when a person's life is on the line, and it's hard to see how one could do no harm when they're getting in frequent brawls. But we'll have to give her the benefit of the doubt. She's the only one with any medical skills here. With all the dangers here on the frontier, I'm sure we'll have plenty of opportunities to put those skills to the test. For now, we'll call her Doc. At the moment, our carpenter is Udib Degel Elu. But carpentry isn't really his passion. No, Udib dreams of being a scholar. He's an adequate writer and a novice fluid engineer, and hopes to someday write books of his own. Udib is 65 years old. He personally does not respect the law and sees life as unfair, yet he doesn't mind it that way. He's buffeted by others' emotions and can't help but respond to them. He's very curious, sometimes to his own detriment. He doesn't find most jokes humorous, and he's not particularly interested in what others think of him. He sometimes acts with little determination and confidence, and has a tendency to consider ideas and abstractions over practical applications. He's quick to anger. Udib strikes me as the bookworm type, engrossed in academics and not as interested in social interaction. We'll have to see if he manages to achieve his dream of being a scholar. Perhaps his knowledge of fluid engineering could be a boon to the fort. Most dwarves tend to call him Scrolls. And the final dwarf in our happy band is Mosus Keshorast, our miner. Mosus is 68 years old, prefers a noisy, bustling life to a boring one, doesn't care about crafts dwarfship, friendship, family, or fairness, and is not readily moved by art or beauty. Yet he's friendly and tries to say nice things to others, and is very polite. He has an active sense of humor, yet he's often sad and dejected. He tends to share his thoughts and feelings with others, yet he's not particularly interested in what others think of him. Now, Mosus is partial to cats. This, combined with his friendly disposition, his active sense of humor, and his bouts of sadness, make it hard for me to see him as anything other than a big softy. What's not to like about this guy? The dwarves call Mosus Scratches, because of his fondness for cats, and a dwarven pun on his last name. It's lost in translation. And with that, our dwarves are assembled, and one could not have hoped for a finer set of dwarves. You may have noticed that all of our dwarves are of a somewhat advanced age. None of our 7 here are younger than 65, but it should be noted that dwarves are rather long-lived. In dwarf years, they're only about middle-aged. Nonetheless, our starting 7 seem to be past their prime. It leads one to wonder why a younger group wasn't sent on such an important mission. In any case, I'm quite sure our dwarves are ready to start building their new home. Now, this section of the mountain seems like a good spot as any to break ground. There's a nearby pond for a water source, plenty of trees, as well as soil for farming, and stone. There's also some nearby dolomite. Dolomite is a flux stone, which is useful for steel production. Scratches will start digging here, assisted by Mesthos. Petal is on woodcutting duty, though we're taking great care not to chop down any trees which produce brewable fruit. Fruit trees can be a bountiful source of exotic wines, a resource worth keeping around. Scrolls is out gathering plants. The forest floor here is covered in spinach, radishes, strawberries, parsnips, all manner of edible and brewable foodstuffs. Meanwhile, Ox has founded her own militia, consisting only of herself. She's called her squad the Brass Wars, and she's set out to strike down a ferocious foe to the uncommon ales, a wild porcupine. Now, porcupines don't have much meat on them, to be sure, but every bit helps in a survival situation. And there she goes, stalking her quarry across the forest floor. The porcupine seems to be giving her quite the chase here. She's lost sight of it. And there we go, it's dead. The combat was decidedly one-sided, but Ox seems to have enjoyed the hunt. We'll put her on butcher duty and have her construct a butcher's workshop to dress the kill. In fact, we're going to go ahead and build a number of workshops here as a temporary production area. And there we are, the butcher shop's built, the porcupine's butchered, and we have ourselves a nice little morsel of meat. But there's yet more quarry to be hunted here. A pair of deer have shown up on the northeast corner of the map. Let's see if Ox can bag some larger prey. This buck seems considerably faster than Ox, but perhaps she'll be able to catch up with it. She managed to close in close enough to take a swing at it, but the deer seems to have escaped. Unfortunately, deer legs seem a bit longer than dwarf legs. Our antlered friend here is giving Ox quite the run for her money. This whole endeavor might have been a little misguided. There's plenty of work to do around here. Spending the day chasing megafauna might not be the most productive use of her time. But a little cardio never hurt anybody. Let's just call this the first phase of her militia training. Oh, there we are. She got a good hit in, hacking the deer in the lower body, tearing the muscle. Not bad. And some more solid strikes. A bruise to the spleen. And with the deer's leg wounded, there's little chance of it escaping her now. Yes, Ox is giving that deer quite the beating, hacking it in the head repeatedly with her copper battle axe, though the deer is staying alive for a surprisingly long time. I suppose this axe was built more for woodcutting than deer decapitation. And with that, the deer is quite dead. At this point, I'd say Ox has earned a break from the hunting. She has more than pulled her weight. While we were distracted, our mason's workshop was completed, and we're going to go ahead and queue up some tables and chairs for Doc to build. Meanwhile, a few sea levels below, our miners are getting straight to work digging out the fortress. And if you look closely, you can see a couple of cats running around down here. I'm sure Scratches is delighted to have the company. As you can see, we've got a lot of the fortress designated already. This central section is going to be our meeting hall and tavern, at least temporarily. And down to the south here will be our food and drink storage. Directly above that are our kitchens and stills, and in the soil just below the surface we're building our underground mushroom farms. With a good section of our meeting hall dug out, we can put down some chairs and tables. It's pretty sparse seating, but the fortress isn't too populous yet, so it shouldn't be an issue. We'll set this as our dining hall, and in fact we're just going to make this into a tavern right away. The new tavern is called The Large Mushrooms. I couldn't have come up with a better name myself. The dwarves are getting started digging out the production area up here to the north, which is also rather vertical. On the top level we'll have all of our finished goods stockpiles, while below that is our workshops and our stockpiles of raw material. It's now the 1st of hematite, and summer has arrived. And with it a new set of pests. A swarm of giant thrips is currently flying around above our fortress. These huge bugs are the size of lions. Hopefully they'll stay away from our dwarves. I have no idea how ox would fare against a swarm of giant insects. In lighter news, we have the first visitor to our tavern. Her name is Zekdu Ivikaguv. Zekdu is not a dwarf. In fact, she's a human artist. Apparently she's come here to perform. Now, Zekdu is from the human hamlet of Ardent Smile, nearly a day's travel to the southeast. She's married to the lord there. All I can say is, welcome. We hope you enjoy your stay. Another bard has also come to visit the fortress. Her name is Dulai Espranathob. Dulai is also an author. She's written a few books, such as The Sun Sets on Tournament, The Primitive Twilight, Distrust, The Night Mourns, and It Must Have Been Deities. Dulai also has an apprentice to her bardship. She's the master of the wolf woman Agun Granddoust, who has also written a few books. Odd people, these humans, but they're quite welcome here. Over in the residential section of the fort to the east here, we've got dwarves digging out bedrooms. The dwarves are now working on the dormitories, and the manager's workshop is now ready. Now Bill will be able to update our stockpile records. And there she goes, busy as a bee. Our dormitories are now ready to go, and I'm sure our dwarves will be quite happy to no longer be sleeping on the rock floor of the cavern. We've also built a nest box, and we're going to go ahead and assign all of our turkeys to it. This will allow us to start collecting eggs, a very useful food resource. And now that our stockpile records are updated, you can see we have lots of meat, lots of plants, and some decent stores of alcohol. Now a situation is developing here on the surface. All of our livestock is running around frantically because 9 great horned owl people are currently flying around above our fortress. I doubt they're much of a threat, but they are upsetting our dwarves quite a bit. And on that note, some migrants have arrived. Hopefully they won't be scared off by our new feathered friends. Here we have the Duke Dumatfikud, a shearer. He's only 15 years old, which is drastically different from the rest of our dwarves. He's rude, cheerful, and quick to anger. At the moment, though, we're not in need of a shearer, so instead we're going to have him working on mechanics. Hopefully he'll be able to help set up some defenses for our little outpost here. We've also got a farmer, Toulon Gusil Godin, who's a skilled critical thinker, a novice logician, a novice writer, a novice reader, and a novice wordsmith. She's only 16 years old. Perhaps she has aspirations of scholarship like scrolls. She's got a small amount of skill in brewing, which will come in handy. Next up is Thekut Lysedrigoth, who is 19 years old, and she is a fishery worker. But since there's not too much fishing to be done here, we're instead going to put her on farming. Thekut is married to Onul Elikinod, another fishery worker who's only 16, and yet the two of them already have 2 children. Onul is going to take over on butchery duty. And here we can see their children, Kivish and Obak, who are 3 and 2 years old respectively. And that's it for the migrant wave. We are now at 13 dwarves. This influx of young dwarves is an interesting development. These 60, 70, and 80-year-olds have essentially had a bunch of teenagers dumped on their doorstep. Let's hope these kids can find common ground with their elders. Now this owl person situation is causing a number of job cancellations. But there's not much we can do about it. Without any Marks dwarves to knock them out of the sky, we're simply just gonna have to let them do their thing. Hopefully they won't be too much of a problem. It seems that several raccoons are making off with all of our textiles. I had tried to put off storing all of our cloth in the fortress until I had gotten our stockpile set up properly. Looks like that was a bad move. I don't think Ox is going to be able to catch up with them in time. No, I'm afraid we're just going to have to eat our losses. I'm just worried that one of our dwarves might enter a strange mood project and ask for a specific kind of cloth. Guess we'll have to just cross that bridge if we come to it. The quickest way to replenish those stores will probably be to purchase the textiles from a caravan. With autumn on the horizon, I'd say it's about time to start building our trade depot. We'll have to knock down a few trees to make room, but that's no problem. I'll probably want to move this depot down to the fortress later on, but for now it's fine up here. Our first set of 8 bedrooms here is now nominally usable. They're not all equipped with chests, cabinets, or doors yet, but they provide a private enough place to sleep for individual dwarves. While we work to furnish the existing rooms, we're also going to dig out some more additional ones. 8 rooms isn't enough to house the 13 dwarves we have right now, and it certainly won't be able to house our population after we have more migrant waves. Our depot is now complete, and I'd say it's high time we started producing something to actually trade in it. With the basics of our fortress dug out, we can now afford to go send our miners to collect gemstones from the surface. Right now we have access to lapis lazuli, wax opals, and rose quartz. The opals are the most valuable of that bunch, but I'm hoping we can find some yet more valuable gemstones deeper down. In any case, the gems we're able to cut right now will help us purchase supplies from the first dwarven caravan. To my knowledge, this site has no shallow metals whatsoever, which also makes finding iron unlikely. We're going to be heavily reliant on caravans for metals for at least a little while, so every bit of wealth we can export right now will be important. Since our craftsdwarf workshop is currently idle, we're going to go ahead and make some rock crafts, which should also help us purchase more things from the caravan. We now have enough beds to house all 13 of our dwarves, with admittedly Spartan living conditions, but rest assured that these rooms will one day be well furnished. We can't have our dwarves living in squalor. I've also gotten our dwarves started on digging out a hospital. Directly underneath the hospital will be a cistern, fed from water in the ponds on the surface. We'll filter it out beforehand so we're not giving our patients murky water. And as if on cue, the caravan from Uthir-Kadal has arrived. And here is the outpost liaison, Strudel Kirnomal, and she's heading off to meet with Petal, our expedition leader. And would you look at that, one of our cats has just taken a liking to Scratches. Scratches has named the cat Kel Domas Mimad. Kel is a fat female cat. Delightful. The outpost liaison Strudel Kirnomal is now meeting with Petal. Let's see what she has to say. Strudel apparently has news from the mountain home. In the midsummer of 125, the army of Unzo Tame Secret, the Trust Moth, marched on whip drinks. King Zuthan is dead, and has been replaced by Aiden Perfect Handles. Long live the Queen. This can't be! The goblins haven't gone to war with us for over a century. Could our establishing this new colony here have triggered some kind of territory war? This is a lot to take in. It's hard to imagine that King Zuthan is dead. According to the stories, he single-handedly went down to the caverns and tamed Rutherers from the deep. It's hard to imagine that a dwarf of his skill could be taken down by some goblin raiding party. Strudel tells us that losses were heavy. 71 of our people were killed at whip drinks, yet we managed to take down 56 of them and were able to repel the attack. And in the defense of whip drinks, one dwarf stood tall above all others. King Zuthan fought to his very last breath. He fought no fewer than 44 goblins, single-handedly slaying 10 before he was struck down. I have no doubt that without his courage and sacrifice, the capital would have fallen. We will never forget his bravery and martial prowess. Glory to King Zuthan, for his like shall never come again. But life must go on in the fortress. With heavy hearts, we refocus our attention on matters of trade. The outpost liaison needs to know what supplies we'll need for next year. We're going to need leather and textiles. We'll also ask them for weapons-grade metals. Now, somehow our civilization doesn't have access to raw iron, even though they somehow have access to steel, which requires iron to produce. Our fortress has no access to such alchemical nonsense, so for now we're going to have to import these metals. We're also requesting some anvils, food, drink, as well as battle axes, warhammers, and spears. Now that war has broken out, we're going to need to be able to defend ourselves. Apparently the mountain home is willing to pay a premium on cut gems and figurines next year. We'll have to make sure to produce some to take advantage. Now would you look at this, Atah Foldyon wishes to reside in Northhold for the purpose of soldiering. She certainly may stay here. Atah is a competent hammerman human. With war brewing, we'll need every able-bodied warrior we can find. Her being human comes with the added advantage that she can wield larger weapons. Since she's a hammerman, we can give her a maul if we ever come across one. Welcome to the fight, Atah. But now it's time to trade. We'll go ahead and grab another mining pick, a little bit of silk, a bronze helmet. Ox will certainly be able to put a bit of armor to good use. And on that note, let's add Atah the human hammerman to her squad. We'll set them to get started training up on the surface. It's never too early to start honing your military skills. Now, apparently an order to build a rock statue is completed, though I don't recall having created that order. Let's see what the statue looks like. The item is a superiorly designed image of Einod, the deity of fortresses and minerals, depicted as a male dwarf. On the statue is another male dwarf as well. The dwarf is praying while Einod is contemplating. This statue was carved by Doc. A pious effigy indeed. In fact, I'm so impressed by her devotion to the faith that I'm going to create a temple with this statue as the centerpiece. We've also got another visitor petitioning for residency, but this one's just a bard. While I'll be happy to accept any mercenaries who want to join our fortress, I don't see much reason to take in a bunch of random poets and dancers. You can be on your way, Idyll. Well, I might actually eat my words here, because another bard has just showed up who is far more interesting. Agun Spostas Pudta has just arrived, a wolf woman bard. If you recall, I actually mentioned her earlier as being the apprentice to a different bard who had visited. Well, I still do want to limit the number of entertainers joining the fortress like this. A wolf woman bard is interesting enough that I think I'll accept if she asks for residency. I've just found a bin of cut gems that I had missed earlier, so we're going to go ahead and buy a couple more things from the caravan. We'll take some ropes, a couple pieces of parchment, a bit of leather, some additional silk, a bit of wool, and a bit of meat. I'd say our first foray into commerce has been a successful one. And wouldn't you know it, another migrant wave has arrived. None of these dwarves stand out to me in particular, but some extra bodies to help out is much appreciated. We are now up to 22 dwarves. One of these new workers, Kadol Sterus Melbil, is going to equip a warhammer I snagged from the caravan and join our militia. We'll need rooms for our new compatriots, so the housing district will be expanded. I'll also set our tavern to be smooth to train up some of our new engravers. And here we have our first strange mood. Scrolls has been possessed by unknown forces and is heading down to claim a workshop. I look forward to seeing what he produces. Scrolls has created a Kiraran Thubilzersul, a willow cabinet. He claims it as a family heirloom. Well, let's take a look. This is a willow cabinet. All craftsmanship is of the highest quality. This object menaces with spikes of willow and hazelwood. Now, wooden furniture makes for a quaint artifact to be sure, but an item like this still has its uses. It will still dramatically increase the value of any room that it's placed in. I'm pretty satisfied with it. Since we don't have any nobles to appease at the moment, we can just go ahead and put it in the room of Scrolls himself. Good work, Scrolls, you've earned it. With autumn coming to a close and winter on the approach, we need to secure a source of fresh water. I've built a little pump station up here next to the pond, which leads to our cistern. Once we turn it on, we'll have clean water for our hospital. And there goes all that fresh, clean water flowing down into the basin. We're now ready to make use of that temple room with the statue of Einod in it. Even though this is a statue of a specific deity, we'll just make this an all-purpose temple for now. The dwarves have named this temple the Shrine of Murders. Now, I'm not particularly privy to dwarven religious terminology, but that doesn't sound quite on the up and up to me. We'll keep our eye on our more devout dwarves here, try and keep the sacrifices to a minimum. Now that we have the dwarf power to be able to have a full-time cook, we can get started producing proper meals. Here's the first meal of the fortress. It's made of kidney and strawberries. Some kind of sweet and savory dish. Maybe like a strawberry marinade or sauce? A bold culinary choice. Speaking of exotic flavors, I want to expand our booze variety. So I'm going to have dwarves start collecting fruit from the trees outside the entrance to our fort. This will give us access to perry, sand pear wine, apple cider, bayberry wine, and apricot wine. A dwarf's dream come true. It is the 15th of Timber, late autumn in the year 125. In a scant few months, the dwarves of the Uncommon Ales have made great progress in establishing their outpost. They've dug home and hearth from the earth, found sources of food and drink, carved great works of art, met strange peoples, and begun preparing their defenses. But great labor and hardship lies in their future. Dwarves have been slaughtered by the score, and these injustices demand retribution. Beating back the goblin horde will require arms and armor, and there's only one way to supply enough metal for the war effort. The time has come to delve deep and secure the wealth of the mountain. But it's getting late, and I must retire. Come find me again some other night, and hear more of the dwarves of old, and their doomed fortress.